Good morning. This is Senior Atmospheric Scientist Andrew Pritchard with your Ag Weather Story, brought to you by Nutrient Ag Solutions. It's Friday, January 10th, 2025. It's a snowy Friday morning here in Champaign, Illinois. The wintry vibes are certainly up across parts of the Ohio River Valley. I was on the road yesterday making a drive from Champaign here down to around the Patoka and Princeton, Indiana area. Was meeting with a group of growers down there in the Patoka, Princeton area, and as I was making my way down there, the sun was coming up. It was kind of the dark of the morning, and with the first light, I could see these really thin bands of fog on the horizon, and the air temperature outside was near 0 degrees. At times, went as low as -2 on the car thermometer there as I was making my way south, and so we've got fog. We've got these super cooled water droplets that are still in liquid form, but they're super cooled. It's 0 degrees out there. So when they meet a surface object out there that's, the surface of that fence or, tree branch or the power lines is certainly well below freezing. So they freeze on contact. And then these water droplets continue to kind of do what's called accretion and accumulate on each other. And we get these really cool crystal forms. And so this is what we call rime ice accretion. This is a chain link fence actually outside the facility there, just north of Patoka. I stopped there, was looking for anything near the road that I wouldn't have to go walking through knee-deep snow through the ditch to get some photos of. But here's a chain link fence that had some of this rime ice on it. Another little fence here along the side of, this was Highway 1. This was actually in southeastern Illinois before I crossed the border there and then made my way down to into southwestern parts of Indiana. And then as I got into the Patoka and Princeton area, some really dramatic accumulations there on the trees. The trees taking on this really bright white color with the blue sky behind it. It was really a dramatic scene. This is a willow tree there as I was making my way into the event. And then also, if you look closely, you could see some of the evidence of the ice storm that made its way through last weekend, Sunday, Monday, that January 5th and 6th ice storm. You've got some of the ice accumulations there, and then the rime ice on top of that. That was a sign that had, obviously some freezing rain dripping from it. And then this was a tree branch here. I got a little bit closer, and you hold the branch. You can see the freezing rain that stuck there several days ago, still there. We've not gone above freezing across the region. Then you've got some of the rime ice, very light, very powdery. That rime ice is not the same as the freezing rain. So it just it melts off easily as the sun comes up. It also kind of blows off with any sort of breeze. But before I get into the near-term weather risks here, just wanted to kind of show off some meteorological eye candy. It's kind of an unexpectedly pretty drive across Illinois and Indiana during the pre-dawn and dawn hours yesterday morning. But getting into those weather risks, we've got a southern U.S. winter storm making its way through the area. Already saw some snow across parts of Texas and Oklahoma into Arkansas, parts of southern Missouri during the day yesterday into the overnight, looking at a swath of snow across the Ohio Valley into the northern tier of the Gulf Coast states over the next 24 to 36 hours. We're going to get another shot of Arctic air, a couple of them, really a brief one that comes in across parts of the Corn Belt early this week. It's going to be followed by another larger, more widespread and longer lasting shot of cold air as we get into the third week of January there. And then unfortunately, we've just endured a really a brutal period of extreme fire weather conditions across parts of Southern California. We'll have to watch this closely over the next couple of days going through the weekend, but it does look like those, conditions are at least similar. Conditions conducive to fire behavior, extreme fire behavior out there may be returning as we get into the early and middle part of the next work week. And then the southern U.S. will watch this pattern kind of, blow itself apart as we go into the early part of next week with that shot of cold air coming in. But then it reloads, looking at, the return of an active storm track running through parts of Oklahoma, Texas into the southern U.S. up through the Ohio Valley. Now, what that means, whether it's, another chance for some accumulating snow, freezing rain, the chance for some thunderstorms, we'll have to talk about that as we get a little bit closer. But it does look like into the last half of January, one or more high-impact storms may be on the horizon. Moving through similar areas here that you see highlighted by that winter weather advisory and the purple, and then within that, you got the pink shaded areas. That's winter storm warnings. I mentioned snow already falling, beginning to taper off in Oklahoma and Texas, pulling away from that region as it ramps up across the Ohio Valley, the mid-south, parts of the southern U.S., moving into the mid-Atlantic, the Carolinas, getting in on some of the snow as we get into the Friday night and Saturday time period. And then we'll look for some colder air coming in on the backside of that, filtering into the Corn Belt, heading into early next week. So here's what the radar looks like just about 9 o'clock Central on Friday morning. Big area of snow. was being kind of pushed along. It's really kind of a fascinating setup here, but kind of a broad system here, a big widespread area that we've got this wintry precipitation from the Great Lakes, Illinois, Missouri, down to Arkansas, into the northern tier of Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia, looking at wintry precipitation across some of these metros in the southern U.S. that really don't have the infrastructure to keep up with it. And then on the south side there, we've got a big area of rain, no big severe weather risk with this system as we move through the next 24 hours. So we can actually track this out then over the next few days, watch this depart, watch another area of low pressure try to swing in on the back side here. This is your Friday afternoon, getting into Friday evening, getting into the early Friday overnight. So snow now pulling away from the mid and lower Mississippi Valley, moving into the mid-Atlantic. Carolinas dealing with that snow, wintry mix into parts of South Carolina. Rain off to the south from there. I'm rocking back and forth kind of through the early overnight. We'll take it into Saturday morning. This is now getting into Saturday afternoon and Saturday evening. The system is departing, just some snow lingering across parts of the Northeast. See another area of low pressure kind of riding over the top of the ridge. A bit of a kind of a wave-breaking event here that brings in another area of low pressure that doesn't have quite as much in the way of meaningful snow, but it's going to tug an area of Arctic air through the prairie down into parts of the Corn Belt here as we get into early next week. So we'll feel the temperatures drop as we get into Monday and Tuesday across the Corn Belt. Certainly going to bring at least some light snow to the Dakotas, with some windy conditions as you make your way into the northern high plains, parts of Montana and Wyoming. Not the most significant snow event, but it'll be high impact there with those winds blowing Saturday night into Sunday morning. This would be sunrise on Sunday, looking for that snow moving out of Minnesota into Wisconsin, Michigan, and northern Illinois. The cold air spilling into the Dakotas and the upper Midwest at this time, getting into Sunday. The snow will continue to move off to the east here through parts of the Great Lakes as we go through the day on Sunday, with that really cold air overspreading the area. And then once that happens, we get into early next week, the cold air blowing over the top of the Great Lakes will get that lake effect snow machine going as we head into the early part of the week as well. So your total snowfall over the next 24 hours, this takes us into Saturday morning, looks something like this. Not the most heavy area of snow, not really like a localized heavy corridor like we saw with the system earlier in the week. This is more a broad, light to moderate snowfall. It's a long duration, stacking up 2, 3, 4 inches, some locally higher amounts of really dry, fluffy powder. So while it doesn't jump off the map, I think we're going to see some pretty high-end travel disruptions, especially across parts of the Mid-South into the northern tier of Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi, moving on into the Virginias and the Carolinas as we get into the overnight and early tomorrow morning. Just some areas here that don't often deal with this fluffy several inches accumulation type snow event. I got stuck in something like this in the Nashville area where they picked up 4 to 5 inches of snow. And I want to tell you, it was, honestly the most unsettled and out of control that I felt when it comes to being in the center of a weather event. And that's coming from someone who's got 20 years of experience of going out and looking for these high impact weather events and at times kind of riding them out. So that was unsettling. And I think it's going to be an unsettling Friday and Friday night across parts of the Mid-South here into the Mid-Atlantic tomorrow morning. Again, we look at the ice accumulation here, not the most significant, but certainly a glaze possible across northern portions of Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, into the Carolinas as we go into the overnight early tomorrow morning. And kind of the blessing here, without a real tight, compact area of low pressure, the winds are not going to be terribly strong. So looking at a broad area of light to moderate snowfall, some icy glaze across parts of the southern U.S. on the kind of transition there from snow to rain. But it's not going to be blowing around a whole lot. Not a lot of blowing and drifting snow. And with the ice accumulations there kind of in the transition zone, not something we're going to be seeing strong winds coming in, exacerbating that, leading to more in the way of widespread tree damage or power lines. So an impactful event just because we have a lot of snow falling and it's going to be slick on the roadways there. But as this gets out of here for the next 24 to 36 hours, we'll see those conditions start to improve. Now, the jet stream looks something like this. Again, a very positive tilted upper level system with a big broad area, a very fast jet stream flow. You see coming around the base there and just racing through Texas into the Mid-South. And that's what's supporting kind of this just broadly, not necessarily disorganized, but kind of a broad, quick moving area of snow and wintry precipitation with rain off to the south. This is, kind of the opposite of what we would look for if we want a real tight, compact area of low pressure, a higher end severe weather risk, and then a more localized but more significant area of snowfall. As this continues to move on, we see that next little area of low pressure try to dip down early next week. The pattern then kind of reloads as we head through the days 5 to 10 time frame. It's going to be rather quiet in the way of organized precipitation as we head through the bulk of the next work week. So the precipitation forecast that follows with this, starting it off Friday again, big area of snow, that transition zone here across the southern U.S. with rain off to the south. We'll take this through the next 24 hours. Let me go ahead and bring it back here. Here's Friday afternoon and evening. Again, we covered this with the high-resolution NAM pretty in-depth, getting into Saturday morning. As we get into the end of the day Saturday, this system is exiting over the North Atlantic, and then we got this next little area of low pressure that brings in snow to the Dakotas, parts of the upper Midwest, and eventually the Great Lakes as we get into the day on Sunday. This is your Sunday morning. We know that there is a big area of cold air coming in out of the Canadian prairie into the northern U.S. with this on Sunday into early next week. Doesn't necessarily get the phasing here to get a big area of precipitation as we go into early next week. We really just see that snow move across the Great Lakes, the chance for some flurries associated with this Arctic high, this polar high coming out of the Canadian prairie. And then, as I mentioned, getting into early next week, look for that lake effect snow machine to get cranking again. Some significant snowfall possible across the usual areas here, the UP of Michigan into Michigan State, off into parts of Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York, upstate there into the Northeast. We'll look for that snow to continue on into early next week. Meanwhile, pretty quiet as far as precipitation goes across the rest of the central and eastern U.S. as we head through the bulk of the week. This is Monday night, Tuesday, getting into Tuesday night. This is your Wednesday morning. This is your Wednesday, and then Thursday, we've got a big area of high pressure across the lower 48, quiet as far as precipitation goes. Now, we'll look for the snowfall accumulation here over the next several days, taking it through the weekend. Here's the first system, big broad area of accumulating snow. And then as we get into Sunday, here comes the next little area of low pressure hitting the Dakotas, the upper Midwest with some snow. And then as I pause this and just show you the end of the week here, you see that lake effect snow starting to stack up across the Great Lakes. So this is total snow through Wednesday, January 15th, the snow from the weekend, the snow from the early part of next week, and then this is also some early next week snow in the northern, the central Rockies, and then hitting parts of the northern high plains. Again, not with significant widespread accumulating snow, but with some high winds Saturday night into Sunday morning. And then this is your total liquid precipitation over the next 5 days, so taking it through Tuesday, January 14th. Again, some heavier precipitation as we talk about liquid. What's in the snow that's going to be falling across the mid-south, talking about anywhere from a couple of tenths up to a half an inch there. And then with the snow that comes in across the Dakotas, the upper Midwest, into the Great Lakes, where we don't get the enhancement from the lake effect snow. We're just talking about, again, getting hit with a trace here, just maybe a tenth of an inch of liquid precipitation. We've really got a lot of real estate across the northern plains, the upper Midwest, and even into the western central Corn Belt that really need to get some snow. No snow on the ground here as we go through mid-January, and then as we look here, into the second week of January, not a lot of obvious signs we're going to get some deep snow there anytime in the near future. So we'll look at the temperature forecast again. A couple of shots of really cold air. The first one that comes in early next week, you see it right here. This is the one that follows the Sunday low. That cold air spills into the Dakotas, and the upper Midwest. Sunday into Monday before making its way into the Great Lakes and the eastern Corn Belt. Tuesday into Wednesday. We see a moderation on the backside there as we head into the middle and late part of the week. Temperatures rebounding, but then another more significant shot of cold air being watched here as we get into around January 19th and 20th. This would be a big one. Would hit a lot of folks in the western U.S., the Canadian prairie before making its way into the central U.S., and has the potential to make it all the way down to the Gulf Coast. So this could be a highly impactful cold snap as we get into right around the January 20th timeframe. These are tough to forecast, in the 10-day time frame. They're kind of, what I'm trying to say is they have high bust potential. When we get out of this time frame, 10 to 14 days out there, we can see some of these really eye-popping cold snaps, and then we get a little closer. And while it turns cold, it doesn't quite manifest with the record-breaking long duration that it showed in the 10 to 14 day time frame. So we'll watch this closely, know that we have the potential for widespread extreme cold across parts of the central and southern U.S. as we get into the January 20th time frame, but know that we also have the potential to see this kind of pull back in the coming days as well. But just to show you what the temperature roller coaster kind of looks like, just picking a location here in the Corn Belt, a bias here, but let's look at Champaign, Illinois here, where I'm recording the video here where the weather team is based. Looking for those highs, right around 30 degrees as we head through the weekend. Again, a peaceful snowfall today with a high of 29. You see the early next week cold snap, though. Those high temperatures in the teens. Overnight lows in the 5 degree to 0 degree range. Looks like the cold snap probably peaks, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. before we rebound into the late part of the week. But then you see those temperatures on the right side of the map already falling back off. That's the cold snap being forecast on the backside of that, January 19th, 20th into the 21st and beyond time frame. We'll have time to kind of talk about that and watch it as it gets a little closer. Now, I want to shift off to the west. We've just endured a really, really brutal week of fire weather conditions across southern portions of California, and I hate to be the bearer of bad news and say that we've got kind of similar conditions coming next week, but that's indeed what we see. The forecast is dry over the next week, no rain in the near-term forecast, and then as I show you the upper-level forecast heading into the middle part of next week, we kind of move along. We see a couple of troughs that kind of dive in across the southwestern U.S. before we see kind of another cutoff low that moves off the coast of California over the Pacific here with this similar high over low setup that once again is going to bring some strong winds, some strong offshore flow. The Santa Ana winds will be cranking back up as we get into the early part of the next week, kind of the back half of the weekend, potentially as early as Sunday, and then looks like maybe peaking as we get into kind of Monday, Tuesday, and then tapering off as we get into the Wednesday time frame, Wednesday night into Thursday time frame. So, without getting too specific, kind of broadly Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of next week, looks like we'll have those fire weather conditions returning to the area. Strong winds, no rain in the forecast, and dry conditions. The relative humidity then getting back into that, really, really dry range of 5 to 15% there as we get into the early part of next week. I mentioned there, just hitting quickly before we wrap it up, looking at the southern U.S., the Ohio River Valley, that active storm track where we've got the winter storm right now. Looking for the pattern to reload, we're seeing some indications on the leading edge of that big cold snap that comes in January 19th and 20th. We may see that be preceded by, a higher impact storm system, and then it's potentially, or within the realm of possibilities here as we run into the last 10 days of January, that along kind of the periphery of that really cold air, we could see one or more higher impact storm systems kind of run up the southern U.S. into the eastern U.S. So this is what we've got with the upper level pattern going out just a little bit further. We'll bring it back here to Friday. This is now actually the weekend. We'll start it a little bit as this first winter storm departs. The next area of low pressure dropping down into the region, and then we'll kind of walk this into early next week. This will be around January 12th and 13th. Getting into early next week, here's that potential high over low setup here with the offshore flow in Southern California, bringing back that wildfire risk. And then it's as we get into the January 18th, 19th, 20th timeframe, we see a really similar phasing, really similar look as to what we've just seen over the last 24 to 48 hours, which could lead to, again, this trough west, ridge east alignment that allows for southerly flow, opens up the Gulf of Mexico. We usually get fast flow in the jet stream right along that kind of dividing line here. We get a big temperature contrast, big incoming shot of cold air, warmer, moist air out ahead of that, big high impact storm system, one or more within that time frame. So it's going to be bumpy here as we get into that January 20th and beyond time frame. What that actually manifests as, we'll talk about as we get a little bit closer. We'll just kind of run it back here. Here's your Friday, Saturday storm system departing. Next shot of cold air, snow from the northern plains into the Great Lakes, Saturday, Sunday into Monday. Another chance for some rain along the Gulf Coast here as we get into Sunday and Monday as well. Kind of quick hitting, not terribly significant, but a quick shot of maybe a half an inch there along the very, very southern Gulf Coast. And then it's as we get into kind of that quiet period during the next week. Beyond that, next weekend, maybe look for another higher impact storm system in very similar areas here. The Ohio Valley, the lower Mississippi Valley, getting into the southern U.S., maybe talking about the potential for more snow, wintry precipitation, maybe the chance for rain and thunderstorms across the Gulf Coast as well as we get into early next week. And as I talked about, with folks down in the southern Indiana, northern Kentucky region yesterday, this is a theme that we may be watching heading into the last part of January and beyond into February. This active storm track kind of running from the southern plains into the Ohio River Valley, shots of cold air maybe being accompanied with that. But across parts of the eastern Corn Belt, the Mid-South, getting into the Mississippi Delta, we'll have to talk about what the potential for an active February, March, and April may look like. Some of the new climate data or seasonal forecast data that we've got here from the European model and an NMME really highlighting an active storm track across the central and eastern Corn Belt, really kind of the mid-Mississippi Valley on into parts of the eastern Corn Belt, the Ohio River Valley. So, we kind of just speculated a bit together as a group yesterday what that might mean if we see this storm track continue, maybe on into the planting season. Maybe it runs on beyond the planting season. And then what do we see then, or what are we kind of positioning for if we run into a summer pattern that on the one hand, maybe turns drier. If we have a really active, stormy spring and then a flip to a hot, dry pattern in the summer, what might that mean? And then on the flip side there, what if we really just see this active storm track running on through the spring with potential planting problems or that kind of thing, or delaying things as we get into the spring? So a lot of things that we don't have answers to, but just kind of speculating and looking at the look right now, which was an active storm track across the Ohio River Valley. If anyone's going to be active here with higher confidence over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I think it's folks in that area, with unfortunately that potential for expanding drought across Southern California into the southwestern U.S. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. It's been nice talking with you. I will chat with you again on Monday morning. That'll be January 13th.